My 33M, FNK, 27F, chose to save my deceased father's stuff over her deceased mother's in a fire. How can I ever repay her? 2 nights ago, my FNK accidentally set fire to our kitchen and the fire extinguisher in our apartment was defective. The fire spread quickly and burned through most of the building before they were able to contain it. I wasn't home, so I wasn't there to help my girlfriend gather anything up. If I was, I would have forced her outside and told her to leave it all. It's just stuff. She chose differently. First, she took out 2 dogs outside and handed them off to a neighbor on leashes. Then she went back in. At this point the kitchen was engulfed in flames and she couldn't make it into the living room, but she could get into the bedroom. She knew she wouldn't be able to make 2 trips, and she had to act fast. Both of us have lost parents. I lost my dad 3 years ago. He was a friend of her father's, so she knew him, though not very well, but he died before I actually met her. I have most of my dad's stuff in a storage unit, but in our bedroom I have his ashes, 2 guns, and a couple of other very personal things from my time with him. She lost her mom as a teenager, and because her father is an asshole, she only has a few small things of hers, and her wedding dress. Instead of choosing to save a few things that she has of her mom's, she gathered up my father's things, wrapped them in a sheet, and ran out of the room. I don't even know how to begin to say thank you. I'm so completely devastated by her losing her mom's things like that, and I can't imagine what she was thinking, or how much she must really love me to make that decision. I don't know how to repay her, or where to begin. Can anybody think of a nice gesture I can make it up to her? She must be devastated. I can't imagine losing the last bit of my dad. TLDR, my fiancé had an opportunity to save stuff from her dead mom when the apartment was burning, but chose to save mine instead. How do I repay her? Thinking about abandoning pregnant GF. My GF is pregnant, and I was really excited to be a dad when I first got the news. Problem is we went to prenatal screening and found out there is a high risk of Down syndrome. A follow-up diagnostic test confirmed the baby has Down syndrome. I want an abortion because I'm not prepared to raise a child with Down syndrome. This is not me bashing Down syndrome people, by the way, it's just not something I'm prepared to do. My GF doesn't want an abortion though, so there's nothing I can do about that. At this point I'm considering just ending the relationship. I'd pay whatever I'm required to by law, but otherwise move on with my life. My GF obviously decides whether to take the pregnancy to term, but I feel like I have a right to leave given how immensely different a child with Down syndrome is as far as responsibilities and future grandchildren. Anyway, I'm asking for advice about how to break the news to my GF. I obviously have to tell her as soon as possible so that she can make an informed decision. But I don't want to come across as manipulative. I realize I'm coming across like a heartless prick here, but I genuinely care about my GF and want to do this in the best way possible for her emotionally. Update to my 22F twin. 22F has slept or tried to sleep with every one of my boyfriends. Don't want her to meet current boyfriend, 23M, of 8 months. So I've made a lot of changes in my family life since I posted this a couple weeks ago. I first told everything to my boyfriend. He was shocked and assured me he'd never cheat on me with my sister or anyone else. He also respected that I didn't want her to meet him. I decided to take the advice given and block her on social media. She immediately noticed, like within 10 minutes after I'd blocked, she sent a text saying, "Did you block me on Instagram and Facebook?" So I didn't beat around the bush. I said yes, because I didn't like how she's messed with my personal relationships. She tried to guilt trip me about how I hadn't told her about my boyfriend, which means my parents must have told her about him, like I knew they would. She exploded at me, because according to her she would never have tried to stalk him or anything, but I hadn't even gotten the chance to say I was worried she'd do this. She said it first, so what does that say? I told her I flat out didn't trust her to not try to take people from me. She called me psycho and selfish, but whatever really. I can't reason with her. She just never sees the problem with anything she's done. The way she thinks makes it like arguing with a young child almost. I blocked her number. I still feel kind of bad doing this, because what if there was an emergency and she needed me? But we live hours apart, so I figure my parents would be who she contacted in that case. Then, as for them, I also got a call from my mom soon after I blocked my sister, who wanted to know what I was doing, because she was upset. She'd already heard my sister's side, which was just that I blocked her out of nowhere. So I tried to tell her my side. I did not tell her my sister's personal business about drugs and having sex. Like I said in the first post, I'm not going to fall to petty revenge. I just want her to stop interfering in my life. So all I said was that in the past she's been inappropriate with guys I've dated and has spread rumors about me, and it made me unable to trust her. My mom then wanted to know what I meant by inappropriate. My parents are really conservative and don't believe in having sex before marriage. She also got my dad on the call at this point. I told them the details didn't matter. She kept trying to go back to this point, even wanting to know if I had been having premarital sex. It was really frustrating. I told them the point I'm trying to make is that my sister has broken my trust. They began saying I should forgive her because they care about our family and don't want to see us fighting. Well, I'm not exactly fighting. I'm simply not going to be in contact with her. To them it's the same thing. Then they wanted me to come home for a weekend to discuss everything as a family. I said I wasn't going to do that I'd made my decision and have no time for a trip. They said they'd come to me then. That brought up how they show up for random visits, even when I've said I don't like it. I told them I didn't want them doing that anymore, and if they did it again I wouldn't let them in or talk with them. So they flipped out. That was fun. I got to hear all how I'm constantly making problems and don't care about my family. I ended up having to block their numbers because they kept calling back, and blocking on Facebook because they were sending messages going back and forth between begging to talk and accusing me of being a terrible daughter and sister. I don't know WTF I'm going to do about them. They did threaten to stop paying for my college if I cut them out of my life. I unblock them to say I want to be in touch with them and do love them, but I can't do the unexpected visits or them prying into my personal life. I said if they stop doing that then I'm happy to have a relationship with them. They had a million reasons why I'm in the wrong. I couldn't deal with it and reblocked them yesterday. So I don't know what my tuition deal is going to be now. My boyfriend at least has been really supportive during this shit. He thinks my parents are way out of line and my sister is crazy. He's really helped keep me as sane as I can be. Overall I just feel really shitty. I wish any of them would ever listen to what I say. But if they won't then what can I do besides put up with what you all pointed out was really controlling or take more control back myself. It just sucks it has to be so. Final, I guess. I wouldn't mind a middle ground like planning a visit with them once in a while or talking with my sister about non-personal things, but they want way more than I do. TLDR, I'm not going to be in contact with my family for the foreseeable future. My 29F mum's friend 60F decided to test my allergies. TLDR, mum's best friend tried to kill me with a banana. I, 29F, have a severe allergy to bananas. This only developed about 5 years ago. It started off with small reactions, but with each exposure they got worse to the point where my mouth and throat will painfully swell up and close up if I eat anything with even a trace of banana. Last year I went on holiday with my parents and my mum's best friend Davina, 60F, and her son Maximum, same age as me. Davina has been a family friend since me and Maximum were in primary school and she's always been a nice person. But recently she revealed that, while we were on holiday her and Maximum tried to get me to unknowingly eat or drink something with banana in it as she decided I was making my allergy up. She told us this last week at a family BBQ as some kind of I told you so. Luckily for me the drink I unknowingly tried only had artificial banana flavoring, didn't contain any real banana, which we had to explain wouldn't have affected me anyway. My parents know that she didn't believe me, but they don't yet know about what Davina did on holiday as they were busy cooking food. Only me and my grandparents were present when she said what she'd done. I'm just so upset that she was so convinced I was lying she tried to ruin my holiday, take my life on the off chance I'd made it up. I feel so angry that she wouldn't even ask my mum to clarify it for her and that she thought it was up to her to decide if I'm faking. Also I don't see what I have to gain by making up such an obscure allergy. I loved bananas before this and I'm actually sad I can't eat them anymore. She's my mum's only real close friend, but I can't even stand to hear her name anymore. I keep crying at the thought of her still being included in family events, but I also feel so guilty about wanting my mum to not see her for a while. I'm very close to my mum, and I couldn't stand to see her upset. Should I tell my parents what she did, or should I just let it go for the sake of a long-standing family friendship? Mini update, I've spoken to my mum, and she was shocked and hurt that Davina would do this. Also apparently Davina has had a problem with me for a while, but we've got no idea why. My mum is going to talk to my dad, and then potentially talk to Davina. I don't know when that will happen, but I will provide a proper update when it does. Also I want to thank everyone that commented. You've all validated my feelings on this and made me see that I wasn't overreacting by being this upset. I will reply to comments soon, but I'm a bit overwhelmed right now. My boyfriend M30 is incredibly upset. I F28 want to split expenses in half versus a percentage based on income. Finding housing has become a nightmare. My boyfriend and I M30 F28 have been together just over a year. While I'm neutral on the necessity of living together before an engagement marriage, he believes it's an important next step, so we've started apartment hunting. My lease is up in October and the owners are moving back in, so the timing works out. Mark currently lives in a studio style place and spends about $1,800 on rent. I'm in a 2-bedroom plus tiny office. I'm spending $4,000. Mark has a decent job and has no problems covering bills with a little left over, but it would be a stretch for him to go up in rent too much more than what he's currently paying. I make, for context, roughly 5 times the amount Mark does. Yes, I could pay more in rent than what I do, but I'm more interested in saving and eventually leaving this area, opening my own practice, buying a home, etc. Also, for context and background, right now Mark and I split going out, and our activities pretty 50-50. We take turns going out and planning dates. No real conflicts. I probably choose more expensive places and activities when I'm planning and paying, but it's not been a problem that I've been aware of. Anyway, Mark scheduled a number of apartment showings for us. He was super excited about this all, so I let him take the lead. I assumed we'd be looking at places similar in size and cost to where I'm living now, because he'd want to keep his costs similar or less than what he's spending currently. Oh no, so not the case at all. The whole first day was a series of luxury places sprawling all over some of the nicest neighborhoods in the city. Average rent on the places we saw was between $6,500 and $7,500. I didn't say anything while we were looking, but when we got back to my place that night I asked Mark what the heck was going through his mind with those prices. He said he picked his favorite places and neighborhoods first and figured I wouldn't mind upping my costs a little, but he had some options in the $5,500 $6,000 range, so that wouldn't even be a noticeable increase in rent for me. I was super confused at this point and asked him to clarify how he expected us to be splitting rent because the math just wasn't working for me. He looked at me like I'd asked the dumbest question in the world and said because he makes 20% of what I make, he'd be contributing to 20% of the cost. Of course, I told him I completely understand that some couples do percentage-based expenses, but if we are going to be sharing a place half and half, then we should be paying for it half and half. We are not married. We are not even engaged. I'm not going to be gifting rent to him. He got upset because if we chose a place that he could still afford going half and half on, my rent would be going down and his would be staying the same. I agreed, but pointed out that he'd be in a bigger place in a nicer neighborhood, so he'd be benefiting as well. Or, we can choose some place less expensive for both of us. I also asked if he expected us to split things like utilities and other household costs with this same formula, and he said of course. I told him if he wasn't comfortable with splitting expenses evenly, we didn't have to make the decision to move in together until much further on in our relationship, and I could just get another place on my own. Now everything I suggest or say is met with coldness and sarcasm, like I told him I'm canceling his birthday or something. I get that he's looking at this from the perspective of what I can do, but just because I can doesn't mean I'm comfortable. I'd understand if I personally wanted to upgrade into something that he couldn't afford, but it's just not that important to me. Am I remarkably out of touch and unfair here? I'd rather not fight about this if there's a perspective I'm missing out there, but it just doesn't feel right to me. How do I rectify this? TLDR, I make roughly 5 times the amount my boyfriend does, so his perspective is that I should pay 80% of our rent and expenses while he takes care of 20%. We haven't moved in together yet, and this disagreement is putting our cohabitation in jeopardy.